She's 39 and he's 60-something, and they're in love, have been for a few years. If you live around the Bayside suburb of Brighton in Victoria, you may see them out and about. They came together around the beginning of this millennium, and according to him, his days since have been filled with the pleasure of her being.
Well, she's a 1969 Mercedes 280 SL Pagoda roof, and in my opinion, she's the prettiest damn thing that they ever produced. How I started on this was in my 20s. I used to look at guys with sort of silver hair with the roof down and a lovely young lady attached to them. And I would look at this, and the guys were 50 odd. And I would look at it and think, what a beautiful car and what a waste. Now, of course, I drive down the road with the roof down, and people look at me, young guys, and they go, wow. And they then mouth the words, what a waste.
He's not alone in thinking that. When the Mark was first introduced in 1963 as the 230 SL, it was a crowd stopper, as this Mercedes-Benz publicity film shows. The styling was up to the minute, crisp, geometric, not like the soft curves of the 190-300 SL range that this car replaced. And it came with a range of features that might have upset the sports car purists, but had instant appeal to buyers around the world. It was much more a luxury grand tourer than the windy, noisy, often cranky sports cars of the early 60s that were mostly coming from British manufacturers. This new Benz had a hard top and a soft top, flow-through ventilation, a heater, even the options of factory-fitted air conditioning and an automatic gearbox. Sacrilege, cried the purists. But almost 20,000 of the 230 SLs were sold around the world within 4 years. And they weren't cheap, even in 1960s dollar terms. The 230 SL was followed in 1967 by the 250, which introduced the 2.5-litre 7-bearing crankshaft engine from the S-Class sedan of the day. The final derivative of the Mark was the 280 SL. Power was up to 170 brake horsepower with a top speed of just under 200 kilometres an hour. It was this model that captured Rob Watt's heart.
I'm not a mechanical whiz. It's just that I've always loved these, and I think it's one of the prettiest models they ever put out. It's quite fast. I've been sitting on 115, 16 miles an hour, about 180 kilometres an hour on long runs back from South Australia. So if this goes to air, for God's sake, hide my number plate. But anyway, she will do that.
Rob uses his 280 as a daily drive. While he gets the pleasure of using his Classic every day, there are, he says, some disadvantages.
They're not easy on petrol or anything like that. And I don't really work on it. And one of the things you have to do if you're going to own a car of this vintage is, first off, find a mechanic that can really work on it. As I discovered, much to my horror, everybody seems to know how to fix these things, and you end up with an enormous bill for very little benefit and value. There are discs all round, overhead cam, power steering, and there's many, many features that are on very modern cars. So for its day, it was no slouch. They're not economical under any circumstances. Country driving, about 8.5 kilometres to the litre. City driving, anywhere between 4.5 to 5.5 kilometres to the litre. So you need a reasonable pocketbook just to pay for the petrol.
But the pleasure of having such a wonderful car as daily transport more than outweighs the disadvantages. Rob says he has no trouble keeping up with the flow of today's traffic, and the four-wheel disc brakes mean that it stops as well as it goes. although the handling can take a bit of getting used to.
And they've got a lazy axle arrangement in this tail end, and if you're heading into a corner at some speed, you think, what the hell is this? But after a few goes, you know, 50 miles out on an open road and a curvy road, you get used to the whole thing. You've actually got a very old-fashioned steering wheel that these days, when there's a place in Germany that changes these things over to a V6 motor, and the first thing they do is take the steering wheel off and put a little Momo, about a 12-inch one, on it or something, because with the power steering, which was actually put in for women to buy this car, which was one of its biggest markets when it first came out, the whole thing is a bit soggy. You've really got to get used to it. If you got straight out of a modern car into this, you're in for some surprises. They're quite slack in their handling capabilities, but once you get used to it, they're great. They really are. Well, interior-wise, you've got real leather. You've got this lovely old quaint steering wheel that's enormous, but it has its virtues because you can see through it perfectly. All these are quite accessible. Everything's easy to get to. You've got your heating system here, all marked, quite clear, easy while you're driving. In fact, there's nothing about the whole car that's awkward. It's just a delight. With the roof off, it's actually quieter than with the canvas roof on. And so it's quite funny. You take it off and it's almost silence. And you lift these into the air to deflect the air off your face. And with these up, it's just magical.
If there is a drawback, it's the hassles involved in turning this pagoda-roofed classic into a ragtop tourer. At a nudge over 70 kilograms, you need 2 people to remove or replace the hardtop, and great care must be taken to make sure the back deck doesn't get scratched. Mercedes did their best to make sure that this Type W113 was as light as practicable, and therein lies another potential problem.
There is traps for young players with these things. To keep the weight down, they made the boot, the doors and the bonnet out of aluminium. So the first thing you learn is not to shut the bonnet. Your girlfriend, not to put her backside against the door when she's unloading something. You end up with a dint in the whole thing. But other than that, she's just beautiful.
Almost 24,000 of these wonderful machines were built before they were replaced in 1971 by the W107 range. V8 power replaced the straight 6, and they were even more of a luxury tourer. But for Rob, what he has will do just fine.
Some minutes ago we started this interview. And you know what? I'm still in love with this woman.
So, the 280SL. What a girl.